Day 27 of this 3D tutorial series. First of all, I'm going to do some housekeeping. If you join me this far into the tutorial series, please refer to my website www.andrewbooth3d.com. My first 4 videos is located on my homepage, and then the rest of my tutorial series is located in my tutorials tab. Alternatively, you can watch this on my YouTube channel. I update every one of them, and they're in a playlist. This website is pretty good because you can reference all, you can see all my examples of work, what I be doing. Also, it's located my email address. If you require any kind of advice, critiquing, or even if your studio is requiring a 3D artist, please contact me on this email address, andrewbooth@outlook.com. Alternatively, you can follow me on Twitter @andrewbooth3d. So now we've finished with the actual housekeeping. Next, I'm going to bring up my reference page that I've been working on. This is another good one. Let's use this one. Now, put that to one side. This is the scene that we left it. It probably looked slightly different to the way I left it in the last episode. There is a reason to that. You see, the problem is when I finished a tutorial last time, as I was about to save, it crashed me. Now, I didn't matter too much because although this was like a half an hour tutorial I did yesterday, the work wasn't that much. I didn't do much work because I was explaining how to do it. But sometimes Maya can save the file when it crashes. It doesn't always, but to locate these files that gets these temporary save files, you have to go into your temporary file, your folder. Now, I don't know if Windows do it because I don't use Windows, I use Mac. But for the Mac, you go to your Go page, go to folder, and you type this in, -FAR-folders-, and we click OK. It locates to these folders. These are the temporary folders, and if you keep going down the hierarchy, it'll come down and you'll locate file, all the temporary folders. And as you can see, you got Maya here. Now, somewhere in here, it's not always in the same place, so I cannot show you a specific folder that it goes in because it's always different. But this is generally the folder that it's located in. So if you remember, just go to folder and type that in because it'll bring you to the folder. Okay, so now we'll be working more in advance, working on this here. This is a good reference because it's like an orthographic. You see a side profile and a front, so you know exactly what's going on. Now, this exactly here, it's not accurate. Don't forget, we are doing our own version. When you do your own version, it's not always accurate. When you're doing your own, it's your creativity. Some studios like you to be referencing actual measurements, so it's relative to the actual product. But I don't always. I do most of the stuff. This coffee machine here, I actually got the true measurements from the website, and then scaled it to those measurements, so that is accurate in size. But when you work in an object, don't always work in scale. Create your own asset. Use references as a guide. So this is a guide to what it's going to look like, but it's not what it's going to be look like, if you catch my drift. So bear that in mind. So first of all, this is too high to for this portion of the actual body, because although you're working on your own creation, it does need some kind of proportion to its weight and everything, how it looks. Because how can you have a small body and a big head, if you know what I mean? It has to be believable. Now, so first of all, what I do, because building this can be a bit hectic, especially when you're in a scene, because when you're trying to click this, you can also accidentally click this down. So what I tend to do, I tend to isolate it from the scene. You do this by clicking this button here. This is the isolation select, and it isolates it just like it looks like in its separate scene. And the good thing about it is, because it's in components, I can then bring this up and then extend this face up if I so wanted to, like so, or I can bring it down, whatever. Now if you look at the actual model, they actually got thinner at this point here, so we need to cut into it. So this is where I cut into it, the actual asset, using the edge loop tool, insert edge loop. I use multiple edge loops, and I always do like 4. That's a good number. Then I can do it crossways if I so wanted to, but I won't do that just yet. What I'll do, I'll bring that down to 1. I know I know it looks odd when you just didn't do 1. You could just click there and you have freedom, but if you use the multiple edges with a 1, what it'll do, it will snap it to the center, and that's what you want. So now what you do, you grab the vertex, of this lower portion, and you notice you're collecting that. So now, when it happens like that, it may be pay to isolate that. It may be pay to isolate it, because as you can see, when you're trying to select these vertices, you can't, because you're selecting other objects. So what I like to do, what is best, is to isolate that again, so we just get the base. And if you look on the model, you see how it's thinner here and then it comes out into a base. So you have to follow that reference. Follow that. And as you notice, it starts to make the other lines jerky. So you bring these in, so it comes into like a slow slope. Just bringing it in like so, and just keep on doing it that way, creating a slow slope. Like so. Yeah. So when you turn off the isolation tool, this is what you got left. Don't worry about topology at the moment, because we're going to be doing a series of passes anyway. This is just the initial build. When you do an initial build, you build what it looks like, then you work back into it, changing the topology. When you're working on a simple object like a pepper grinder, it's simple because it's a primitive object unit. It's just a cylinder. When you're working on something more complex, what is a more customized shape, it's more about getting the shape, the silhouette correct, then altering the topology so it's more efficient. And you do that through a series of passes. That's how you do when you're doing sculpting. When you're doing sculpting, you create that asset first in Mudbox or ZBrush. You make the actual model, then you do a series of passes to calm down the poly count. That's how I do it. Some people do it off the back, for this kind of this is actually not bad topology wise, because it needs, you can get away with it, I suppose. If you take away this edge, you can get away with it. You can get away with it if you delete that. Then you bring this up. Then all you do is that. You can do. So it's all, like I say, it's not about at the moment, although efficiency is key, it's also about getting the silhouette, the main silhouette down, and written down, bulk down, because although we've done the, blocking it out, a good asset is all about a good silhouette. You can have a really good texture, a really good UV set, but if the silhouette itself isn't accurate, then it will throw everything out. Because also another thing you need to consider, a silhouette, and it's a lot of, when you're doing about 3D and modeling, a lot of it's to do with the silhouette and how the light bounces off of the silhouette. That's what a lot of it is about: light bounce, subsurface scattering, photons, how a certain object's light bounces off to make it a good looking asset. Like I say, you can have a really good texture but a really bad silhouette. When that happens, it kind of takes away from the good texture, because it loses that special feeling. It changes completely. See here, if you look on my actual coffee machine, it's a really good build. And it has a lot of light bouncing. That's why it looks really good. This looked like a hard surface because how the light bounces off of it, and that's what you do. That's what it's all about. It's like how you make the light bounce off of a certain object. Now today we only be working on the base, then tomorrow we'll be working on the top half, and then the day after that we'll be working the bowl, and then other decals, like dials and buttons that we'll be working on. There's two different ways we could do it. We could do it as a actual knob. I already got one made up. If we can use this knob here. I did the same here. I used the same knob throughout. It made it more uniformly if I do it that way. Also, it's one less texture I can worry about. If you have, it becomes more like a universal kind of pawn rather than a simple bash. a simple decal. And it's a trade-off, really. If you're going to use an object over and over again, as long as you have a texture that's universal, that can change in procedurally, you can use it over and again and no one will notice it's the same thing, which then it will save in processing power and it'd be more efficient than create another pawn sheet or another decal, which is another texture, which then will add more memory to the actual render. And this is something I've been looking at recently. Unreal Engine was talking about how they were optimizing their scene. They were saying about translucent and opacity. If you have an object that has a translucency, that would be more costly, because even though it's glass and it's see-through, it's still got to render everything that's behind it. So the draw, they call it the draw power, which is basically rendering the render power. The render power behind this is going to be much more, because it's got to, this is going to make, this is a still, like this bit here is translucent, right? So this is costly because this is glass, so it's got to render this object, and then because it's translucent, it's got to render the cups behind it. It's got to render the wall behind it. So it's more costly. So I recommend to use translucency as little as you can get away with. Obviously, when you've got objects that do need it like that, you can use it. Like Windows, you have to use it. But like a computer screen, obviously it has glass, but you don't see that glass, so there's no point creating the glass of the computer. So let's re-isolate this. Here's another tip. As I said before, when you actually build an asset, it's about a silhouette and how light bounces off it. Here's a little trick. If you click this button here, the light bulb, it uses all lights. At the moment mine looks dark because it has so many lights in it, it cannot process all of them. But basically what it's doing, it's showing all the light sources in the scene. Now I think there's a limit how much I got it's allowed to show. I'll probably look into how to increase that limit so all my lights can be shown. But basically what's happening when I zoom in here where my light source is actually shown, it's literally partially rendering out just the lights, and with it the shadows, so the light is come down and bouncing off, and it's shown where the light is bouncing. And again, because it's only partially lit, as you can see here, only these lights here is lighting up. Because of that, it's really dark. That's why when we rendered out using the hardware, it was pretty dark, because the hardware can which this is the hardware. This is using Viewport 2, which is a games quality, a games engine quality render, but there's only a limit of how many placed on it of the lights that can be shown, as I said before. If you're using a simple scene that's only got a few objects in it, you can use it and it would work more efficiently. But a big scene like this, it won't. So do take care in that. So now, when you go into actually viewing it, it goes out as a bulge here. So in the here I'll drag this out like so. Drag this out like that. And then select all those edges and drag out like that. That's cool. And of course I got to do along here. There you are. And then I got to drag this out here like so. Cool. A little bit more. There you are. Then what I'm tempted to do is do that. That's cool. Now, here's another trick. As you can see, it looks like it's burned down. To correct that, what you do, you select the edges, the faces here, and using these tools, the R tool, the scale, if you drag the green button downwards, it, to the center, it flattens it out, so it's more better that way. Okay, so now when we actually look at the reference, you see it's curled here. And if you look at the other references, you see that it's squared, a rounded square, but here it's circle. You can do that simply, very simply. Now this tool, some people recommend it, some people don't. I recommend doing it for round objects, but it's called the bevel node. It adds a bevel. Basically what it's doing is taking the center, the actual edge that you selected, and cutting it. At the moment it's on the power of 2. If you turn it to the power of 1, what it's doing, it's splitting in half by an equal measure. So it's beveling it. So now I would increase this to 3, and as you can see, it makes it more rounded. But it's just around this section here. To change that, you need to change the fraction. You can turn off offset as fraction, and it does it by segments and offset. Where if it has it offset as fraction, it does it by fraction. It's a different calculation basically. So if you turn it to 1, you can see it's made it more rounder. It's actually made it round. As you can see. Or now the reason being we're getting this kind of look is because of the alterations we made it when we pulled these edges out. So what I'll do, I'll go back like so, where I left it like that, and then start and do it from this point on here. And actually do it from here. So press G. This is another tip. If you press G, it repeats the same moves that you just used. So fraction of 1 is too much, so 0.17. There we go. Increase the segments to 3. That's still not smooth enough, so 4. There you go. And as you can see, it's made it more rounder. That fraction is too small, so I turn it to 0.8. There you are. So now you got a round object. So now it's the case of just selecting this and scaling it uniformly outwards. Like so. Be careful what you have selected, because if you select other faces, it tends to knock things out a bit. So like that, and then there you go. And obviously this looks awful, so just drag that out. From here I isolate that one more time, and if you look at the reference, it comes out in a swoop like that. To do this properly, what I'll do, I would use the extrude tool, but instead of extruding it, so put that to 0, do an offset of 1. You see that's too thin, so do as 3. There you go, and it's creating an offset. And this is vital, because then what I'll be doing, if you come here, I'll be creating this bit here. Which is vital. So what I'll do, I select this edge, this vertex and this vertex, and drag it that way. Actually, I'll take these bits with me as well. Drag it out that way. If you click and drag, it gets a selection, but be careful to use that, because you may select other selections that you don't wish to be selected, if that makes sense. There you go. Then bring this in here, like that. Up. As you can see, everything's been knocked again in the topology. So again, use the scale tool and drag the top bit down, and it straightens out all those lines. Now, as you can see, topology wise, this is awful. This is where you use your actual edge cut tool. This is a split polygon tool, and it's the case of just splitting your polygons up. We don't need it there, so we can delete you. Yeah, and that, because what we truly after is it just going downwards like that. We don't want another polygon here. So as you can see, as you can see on this side, I went to the second edge. The reason being is I did that is because it's creating a polygon. This is actually now a polygon rather than a try. This is one thing you need to keep your head on about. What is what's going to create a polygon and what is going to make a tri. So now what I'll do, since I've done that, I can delete you. Yeah. Now what I'll do, if you're wondering what that was, how I got that tool, if you go into your script editor, type in your MEL code, split polygon tool, you click and drag and you into the shelf, and it adds a new split polygon tool. And it's the old version of what they used to use. It's more efficient. So now we've got that. Select these edges, these faces, and extrude it inwards. As you saw there, it made an anomaly because we already had a face selected. So press G again. Instead of 10, do -5, and it pulls it in. Now if you look on the actual reference, it's going in, but it's moving out here. So what we do to reflect that, we get this target world tool. Basically what this is a new tool for Maya, but they have it for 3D and 3D Max. Basically what it does, it literally merges two vertices together like so. By doing this way, what we're doing, we are merging vertices here and then it's come in a swoop, just like the reference says. There you go. Now again, using the scale tool, strain the edge out like so. There you are. Then having these vertices selected, as well as these ones, pull them out further. Don't worry about how it looks at the moment, because it will all be sorted out. There you go. And just select these and straighten these out like so. Pull that back so it's more flat. There you are. But as you can see, it looks too blocky. Before I move on, I need to retopologize these. First of all, cut across here, and it makes that into a polygon. So now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 polygons. What you can do, you've got to be very careful now, because you can create triangles. I would go across as well, across that way, and one more. As you can see, it's finished topologizing it, and if you look on the actual reference, it's smooth. So this is more rounded. So select this edge here and this edge here, actually, first of all, we didn't create that one first. That's a better one. So first of all, select, we need to, that's right, working things out. As a 3D artist, you'll be working things out a lot. Believe me, you will. You constantly have to calculate what is efficient, what works best in your model and what doesn't. So again, insert edge tool. So, and as you can see, the line isn't straight. Why is that? You're probably thinking. It's because the topology isn't. You have this line that's straight and it bails out here. This line straight and it bails out here. Actually, it's not quite straight. So what I'll do, straighten this out. Straighten this out. You know, pull these back since they're more even, like so. Pull this up. But as you can see, it's not straight. Why is that? Like I said, because this edge here isn't, isn't straight down. So it's following with the flow of the topology. It's not good for what we need it. So it's just straighten out. And so now it's dead center. Now, as you look at the actual image, it curls around like that. So just select these edges here. Actually, this edge here will get in the way of the color. So lower this. In fact, what I'll do, I'll use the target world and target world here to here to here. I know it's making a try here, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, what I'll do, because it will knock out, it won't look very good after we beveled it. So what I'll do, I'll hire this out, select this entire edge, make it more centered. There you go. Select this edge. In fact, if I look at the reference, that needs to be even more thinner. So what I'll do, I'll select the entire model, slim it down that way, so it does it proportionally. Select this and drag this out slightly more. There are, and then reduce it there. There you go. That's better. As you can see, when you're a 3D artist, you'll always see things that don't look right, and you know it doesn't look right, but you've got to correct it. It's a lot of the work is as you go along. So again, you bevel these two edges, and it makes it more rounded. If you look on the image, it's round, but it's not drastic. So I'll lower the fraction to 4, 0.4, but increase the segments to 3. Actually, no, other way around. Increase it to 6. They are perfect. Wait, no, because it's got that stump there. So lower it again. 0.8. There you are. So it's round. It's perfect now. Since we got the intended around this, we can delete that because we don't actually need it. We did that as an indication. So select these edges like so. Using scale, you scale it down. Yeah. So now we've got that around this. Actually, it's too much. There you are. That's more better. I've got that round this. Again, now you've got to improve the topology. Like so. And they are. From this step on, we've got to create this round this here. So by selecting here, these edges here, and again you bevel it. I'll do these ones separately, but they will need to be done. Bevel it. As you can see, why it's mean there's a triangle is because I missed one edge. So return, press select it and press G. You will get this triangle here. Don't worry, that'll be corrected. Turn it to 3 and again increase the actual fraction. Actually, I'll turn it to 1. There you are. It's created a nice roundness. To improve it, just again strain them out like so. Way. Ah, that's why. Be careful, if you double click on the edge, it select the entire edge loop, and it may not even be the correct edge loop that you are intended. So do be careful. That's to do with your topology and how your topology is iterized, as you can see. So now I'll delete this bit here and this bit here. Because we're going to retopologize that. Bring this inwards. Like so. Ooh. In fact, I'm going to delete that entire edge and correct it. But this is what it's all about. Creating an edge. And as you can see, it's creating an edge there. Which then we can then take from here and pull this all the way around. Although it's adding more geometry, it's making the topology more better. again, it's a trade-off from good topology and what good topology and poly count. So do it from this edge. It's better if you do it from this edge. Like so. As you can see, we only got 296 tries on this. That's the poly count, and for more, that's not too bad. As I said before, don't worry too much about the topology, because we'll do that as a Venus pass. There you go. Reason I delete those faces is because we'll be sorting out later. Like I said, as I said, beginning the actual tutorial, we'll be doing a series of passes to make the topology more efficient. So, just like you do when you sculpt, you do the same when you sculpt. You start with a really high poly mesh, and in some cases really inefficient, and then make it efficient in a series of passes. So with this, I'm just going to leave it as 2, or actually increase it to 3. Increase the fraction even more. You keep typing numbers until you get a decent enough. They are. Now what's happening here? Why is it jerky? It's because there's not enough polys to iterate a smooth transaction here. We can try and make better by pulling this out slightly, and the same here. There you are. It's slightly better than it was. As you can see, this typology here is pretty messy. We'll be sorting that out next time before we move on to the hedge. That'll be the first pass in the actual topology. And they are. Now I am tempted to get rid of this outer one here. One of these edge loops here by joining up here. But that's for next time. As you can see, we've got a basic silhouette of the actual model, what we've got here. It goes in a curl just like that. What I'll do now also, as a finished touch, I would use soft select. Soft select is the same thing as the select tool, but it uses a gradient tool to affect other, not just one edge. It doesn't just affect one edge, it affects them all. See, using a gradient. So it's starting with black is when it's not affected, red is when it's mild, orange when it's medium, and then yellow is when it's affected big time. Like so, and we just drag this out here like that, and it creates that a little bit more of a swooping action downwards. Like so. So now we got the basis of our actual asset. We've got the basic silhouette of the base. As you can see, it's changed dramatically since the beginning, because we use the isolation tool. It's isolated from the scene, so it's changed it slightly. Before I finish this tutorial off, what I would do, this is really starting to really bug me. I'm gonna first of all take off this soft select tool, select the edge of the base like so, and then I would bevel it with a 1 this time, with a fraction of 1, so it's got this nice edge where the light can catch on, and delete the bottom ones. The reason being I delete the bottom topology is because it's on a hard surface, so you won't get to see the bottom underneath. But with this extra edge loop, light that bounces here won't catch underneath here. It'll create like a little shadow. This is what you do, controlling the shadow and light using your edge loops. As you can see, this is the beginning of this 3D mixer. Join me tomorrow and we'll be working on this top half here, you know, typologizing, retopologizing this base here, you know, and then creating the top half correct. So thank you for watching me today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching me.